When you act like her, you become her. In this episode, we are going to rewire your brain.
Intentionally act like the person you want to become. Because when you intentionally act like the person you want to become, your brain sees you taking those actions, so your brain starts to change the way it relates to you.
So armed with this knowledge, courtesy of Mel Robbins, today we're going to be exploring how to trick or rewire your brain for success. Hi, my name is Lyla, and I'm your host for Becoming DISScomfortable, a Gen Z podcast dedicated to preparing you to become the best version of yourself. You want to be confident? People will tell you, fake it till you make it. You want to be rich? People will tell you to start saying, I'm rich, even if you don't have a penny in your pocket. And I'm not gonna lie, for the longest time, that sounded like BS, like complete BS to me, because if it was that easy, wouldn't everybody do it? Every new year, you see the people around you talking about their goals. Some make vision boards. They do this with so much motivation, so much intention, and yet they fall short. And you've probably had this happen to you too. You know why? Because there's multiple components to manifestation. In a way, it's easy. All you're doing is thinking about something and maybe visualizing it in your head and seeing yourself get that. But the problem is there's no action accompanying those goals, because either A, the belief in yourself is not strong enough to propel you into doing that action, or B, the goal and the actions related to that are very foreign to you. So meaning it's foreign territory that your brain is not used to, which means it's not viewing it as something that you should be doing. It's basically, if it's something foreign, if it's something you've never done before, your brain is gonna do like everything possible to try to convince you that it's not good for you, that you shouldn't be doing it. You're gonna get anxiety, right? Anxiety pops up to protect us from things that our brain feels threatened by, not necessarily because that thing is bad for us, but rather because it's just foreign to you. I see so many people mistake their anxiety for intuition, or kind of conflate the two together, like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, I don't feel good, like I don't feel comfortable doing this. Like, yeah, you don't feel comfortable doing it, you've never done it before. There's a gap between your current self and your desired self, and you need to fill that gap with delusion. Being delulu is the salulu, and you will find this to be trululu. And some of this stuff is actually backed up by science. So I'm gonna tell you about a cool little word I learned recently. And I promise you, the more you learn about this, the more you'll realize like, hey, this is actually a thing and she's not just spewing like BS. I've done my research on this and you should too, because there's actual evidence, people doing studies out there, people doing research that show that these things have meaning behind them. Like, I'm not just saying this stuff to motivate you, like this is actually real by science standards at least. There's this thing called neuroplasticity, which is a fancy word for your brain's ability to change throughout your life, which I believe has to do with like altering the chemistry of your brain. And that's why I love using that phrase. I love throwing that around all the time. Knowing that your brain has the ability to change throughout your life, no matter what stage of your life you're in, although obviously when you're younger, more impressionable, just makes more sense that your brain is going to develop the fastest and be the strongest when you're young, right? What we're going to talk about right now is called self-directed neuroplasticity, which is intentionally rewiring your brain to create positive habits. This was defined by researcher Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz, and it was then made popular by a psychologist from UC Berkeley's Great Good Science Center. And obviously, I'm gonna bring out another Mel Robbins audio. I played this in my last video about hobbies. You should totally go check that out because it's a good one, where she talks about how important movement is, as in literally moving your body and also taking action. She says that you should never, ever, ever depend on your mood. And what you should instead do is adopt this mindset. Movement changes your mood. And this is where manifestation comes in, and how all of this stuff connects to manifestation. Because when you're trying to manifest things, you're trying to match the frequency or energy levels of the thing that you're trying to manifest. So if that thing is over here, you want to be at the same level in order to attract it. I'm not going to go into the full detail about manifestation in this video, but if you want to manifest your desired results, then you need to evoke the right feelings within you. Like, it has to be a very, very powerful emotional response. And it's not just like a one-day thing. Like, it can take days, weeks, months, years, depending on what it is you want and depending on how much you're practicing. So the way I see it is that you want to get into the right state of mind by moving. In order to keep moving in the right direction, you use manifestation. And there are like so many different methods for manifestation, but the one that I use and I believe is also the most powerful from what I've heard is visualization, which then motivates you to then keep taking action. And it's kind of like a cycle that like goes back and forth until I guess you get your desired result. Studies show that when you visualize, like for example, if you're thinking about running, it's kind of like you actually are running because similar neurons are firing in your brain as if you were actually running. And it creates like those feel good pathways. Sometimes if you think about something, if you think about like the best example I can think of, I don't know, food or a certain dessert or a certain smell, I can feel it, you know? I can smell it. My senses just kind of heighten. Not like literally, not exactly as if it was happening, but pretty close. If I imagine myself doing something like going on a roller coaster, I kind of get that like feeling in my stomach. So I'm assuming it's like the same thing with this. If you imagine yourself doing that thing, the best time to do this I think would be like at night before bed, in the morning, to motivate you. Close your eyes, like literally close your eyes and like visualize yourself doing that thing. You're training your brain to like it, to be doing it. And if you've read Atomic Habits, you know that like the best way to form habits is through repetition, not about how long you've been doing it, but how many times you've been doing it. So obviously visualizing is not enough, but when visualization is accompanied with action, it is so powerful. The biggest form of manifestation, in my opinion, is taking action that accompanies your thoughts. Now we're going to get into some actual methods that you can use to make this happen and take yourself from acting as that person to literally becoming that person. So my argument is that when you act like that girl, you become that girl. And that girl is entirely up to you. And number one, you need to understand who you are now in relation to your potential. In some of my episodes, I've talked about self-awareness, the importance of knowing who you are, but also knowing who you want to be and what your desired self looks like. Because if you're not aware, if you don't know who they are, how are you going to become them? Or how are you going to get rid of this one, right? How are you going to get rid of bad habits, bad things that you don't want for your desired self to be doing? Or if we flip the switch, how are you going to adopt the mindset shifts and develop the habits that your desired version does if you don't know what they are? Like if you don't know who you are as a person, how are you going to shed those bad habits? And if you don't know who your desired self is, if you don't know what that person looks like, what that person does on a day-to-day basis, how are you going to become them? So you want to take whatever it is you're trying to manifest, whatever it is you're trying to become, and make it a part of your identity by shifting your identity. So turn it into like a core belief. This might sound a little bit cheesy, but I promise you, like if you're dead serious about this and you actually want to make these changes, you might want to give this a shot. Whoever this person is, I want you to imagine who they are, what their life looks like, their day-to-day habits, also the way that they feel. Like you want to try to make yourself feel that way, but you can't make yourself feel that way if there's again no action accompanying that. You want to mimic their habits. Ask yourself what their daily routine looks like, what you imagine it to be, or maybe you might have real life examples that you can draw inspiration from, and you want to mimic that, okay? Like observe yourself, the way that you dress, the way that you act, the way that you talk about people, talk about things, all of your behaviors, all of your habits, you are now observing yourself and who you are. And ask yourself, does my behavior align with the girl that I'm trying to become? With the person I'd be if I actually reached my goals, if I actually was there? Like, would I still be acting this way? One of the things I used to ask myself was like, if I were making 6 figures right now, what time would I be waking up? What habits would I be doing? Because, you know, sometimes, like, for example, I fall into this like rut. I've fallen into like a rut so many times where I can't do anything. I feel stuck and I'm just procrastinating and like not really doing anything that I want to be doing. And the thing that gets me out of that is thinking about that person, thinking about that girl, like, would she be doing this or not? And if not, then like, why the hell am I doing it? If this is not in alignment with what I want, with who I want to be, why am I doing this? This is not who I am. So then I like try to distance that thing from my identity, because that's not who I identify as anymore. And it takes a lot of confidence and a lot of delusion to be able to do that. But that delusion, that faking it till you make it, it actually does become reality if you are at least consistent with the faking part of it, if you know what I mean. Like, if you are faking it, but you're faking it every single day, then eventually there will come a point where you're not faking it anymore and you actually are that girl. And by the way, this like doesn't mean you have to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning every single day and hustle and hit the gym. You know, wake up at 5, hit the gym at 6, cure cancer and conquer the world. Like, you don't need to be doing all of that stuff. Unless, of course, that's what you want to do. In that case, you might like want to fake it till you make it. If you want to cure cancer, you better get started on that now. However, I will say, when you take inspiration, and you should be doing this if you haven't already, taking inspiration from other people, from successful people in your field, in whatever it is you are trying to do, in most examples of successful people, you will find that a lot of people wake up early and they tell you to wake up early. And this is coming from a night owl. I am not naturally like a morning person, but I'm trying to become a morning person because I'm trying to like learn from other people, and other people say that waking up early makes your day go better, helps you be more productive, good improvements, positive changes in your life. And so I've been trying it too. Like, I know for a fact that when I wake up early, and especially if I do it like consistently for several days, like my mood is just better. I get more things done in my day, so I'm like less stressed. So an example that I have actually tested out myself is that I really wanted to read. I used to be a reader when I was younger, but then something happened and I just stopped reading for a while. And I noticed that because I stopped reading, I was actually finding my classes a bit more difficult. I just felt kind of empty, kind of soulless. I loved reading as a kid, and so I was like, what's going on with me? Like, why am I not doing this anymore? So I really wanted to get back into it. And like, for the longest time, I had no motivation whatsoever. But then I learned about this stuff. I read about it in Atomic Habits and like a couple other things, found it online somewhere. I don't even remember where I got this information. Basically, I knew that in order for me to start reading again, I would have to make it a part of my identity. So even though I didn't have a lot of time last year, considering I was an IB, I had like a crazy work schedule. It's one thing to like, I do make excuses about not having time, but like, I actually did not have time last year. And yet, despite that, I still read quite a few books, even outside of what I was supposed to read for class readings. And I was only able to do that because I started acting like a girl who reads. I started like consuming book related content. I started going to the library more. I started talking to people who are into books. My conversations became about books. Like, I literally made it about my personality, not to like be hypocritical or say that, oh my goodness, look at me, I'm reading books, even though I wasn't. I wasn't trying to be like dishonest with people, like, oh, I'm such a reader, but I was like rather trying to manifest it into happening by already calling myself a reader, by already acting as if I read a lot of books. I think I got into It Ends With Us, so even though even though that book gave me trauma, it kind of like kickstarted this whole reading era, and I like finally got back into reading. So in a way, I think book talk is awful in some ways, and it's like the fast fashion of books and whatever. We're getting a little bit off topic here. I also think it did help me get back into reading, and I do love that reading is cool again. Basically, like, I made it cool about myself. Already there's the fact that reading is becoming cool again, which is awesome, and that like made me want to read more. But like, seeing it on my For You page, being able to talk to people about it openly, even making my content, like I sort of shifted my own content on social media to make it about books, just a tiny bit, not too much, but that itself was like enough to get me back into reading. I'm still working on it. I still have a long way to go, but like, I've read so much more this year than I was even like 2 years ago when I wasn't even picking up like one book. If you're into books, check out my reading videos on my main channel, Vivacious Lyla. This is just one example. Another thing that you want to do if you want to feel more confident in public, something that you can do to move, to take action, is put on a cute outfit or spend a little more time on your appearance. Not to say that confidence is only dependent on appearance. It's so much more than that, but appearance does play a role. And I think the inner work takes a lot longer for you to do, but the inner work is connected to your appearance and your outside version of you. They're both connected. So you can use the things that you can control or the things that you can do. Like, you can use the cute outfit, you can use the extra time that you put in yourself to fuel and funnel your confidence. And when you go out, you'll feel just a tiny bit more put together. And because you feel that way, you'll act act that way as well. So make it a part of your identity. Number two, just a quick little disclaimer, do not let yourself get in your way. I don't know why I never paid attention to this. Maybe it's because the people around me kind of didn't. Watch your words. Don't say stuff that contradicts this new reality in your head. If you want to be confident, why would you say, oh, I'm not confident? Or if you want to be pretty, oh, I'm not pretty. I hear people talking about how they want to be this thing all the time, but then the only things that come out of their mouths are things that go against that belief. I've heard people say, oh, I'm just not good at making friends. I've heard people say that they want friends in their life, that they want more people to hang out with, they want to find their girls, they want to find their tribe, but the only stuff they constantly say and affirm to themselves and reaffirm to themselves is, I don't have any friends, I'm not good at talking to people, I have social anxiety, I don't know how to speak to people. Anything that you say to yourself, you're reinforcing that belief. It might not seem that way to you because it's just words, right? But it's not just words. I promise you. Words have the power to evoke emotions. Look at poetry, look at music, look at art out there. Like, those things often evoke some form of emotion within you, right? Whether you're aware of it consciously or not, like, they're constantly influencing us, and you're like literally influencing yourself by doing the things that you're doing. So if you keep telling yourself that you're not confident, or if you keep saying that you're not pretty, or if you keep talking that way about yourself, that's the only thing you're gonna affirm. Like, don't be surprised if you don't get that result then. So be consciously aware of everything that you say, of everything that you think, not just about yourself, but about other people too. Like, I used to have this really bad habit of talking about myself badly and then masking it as self-deprecation, like self-deprecation humor. You know, like I look back at that girl and I wonder what was going on through her head, because that is not how you talk to yourself. Do not make this mistake, because it will take you back. Like, every time you do it, you're just gonna go back on all of the work that you've done on yourself, okay? And don't consume content that takes you off track. So similarly to like the things that you're saying, the people you're surrounding yourself with, you should be making sure that those things reaffirm the traits, the attributes, the qualities that your desired self should have. Don't reinforce the behaviors, the bad habits, the behaviors that you're already engaging in, because you're trying to stop those, right? So pay attention to the content that you consume. If there's something that makes you feel bad about yourself, if there's something that takes you off track or talks about things that you don't want to be affirming into your life, don't watch it. Don't watch that content. Don't listen to it. Don't watch it. If there's certain music, a lot of people, when they're sad or upset, they end up listening to music that is also about being sad and upset. Like, that's only going to make you more sad and upset. I'm not saying that listening to happy music is going to make you feel so much better, but at the very least, you're not affirming to yourself that you are in this state, right? Pay attention to everything. Become aware. Become hyper aware. I don't know what number we're on, but it's time for you to let go of the all or nothing mentality. This is something that I've struggled with so many times, where it's like, you say that you want to go all in, or it's just not worth it. If you want to be fit, then you have to go crazy with it, and you have to be doing what all of the most fit people around you are doing. And if you can't do it, then you're just gonna quit. I know that's not what you want to hear, but that is unfortunately how a lot of people think, how I used to think, and I still think all the time about things, and I'm trying to like correct that every single day. It's the smallest things that you do in life. It's the things that are so like, they're so minuscule, those changes, that they basically make you feel like you're not doing anything. It's when you do those things every single day and you keep on doing them, even if you don't feel like you're getting a result, that end up giving you the results. Those things have been in the making for weeks, months, years. It's just something that they've been affirming again and again and again until it actually happens. So anything is better than nothing. The next one is one of the biggest mistakes I've made, so please learn from my mistakes and do not repeat them for yourself. Divine timing. Trust in the unexpectedness of divine timing. Let go. Detach entirely from the outcome, and that is when things will start to work for you. Like, if there's anything you take away from this video, let it be this. You cannot force it. You can pray for it, you can take action for it, but at the end of the day, what's meant to to be is meant to be. You need to tell yourself that you can afford to be patient because you know that it's happening. If it's meant for you, it's happening. Literally, the world could be ending and it would still happen because it's meant for you. And it's just a matter of when. Like, you don't know exactly when it's happening, but like, you don't need to. Like, that's the fun part. You know, like I recently, I had to shift my perspective to think about it as it's like fun to not know. Because if you knew when exactly everything was going to happen in your life, well, that's no fun. The unexpected nature of it is what makes life worth living. I don't want to put gender on this too much, but I do think this is somewhat of like a feminine way of approaching life. I don't know if you've ever heard of the concept of feminine energy, where you are just supposed to be in your being state rather than doing. I don't want to get into too much, like this is not about feminine energy. Some people don't even believe in that, but like adopting those principles in your life can really help you out. Because I've experimented with this in the last 6 months, and man, I can tell you that the times when things actually happen is when I'm least expecting them. It's always when I let go or when I'm least expecting it that it actually finally ends up happening. A dream, profession, going viral when you least expect it, or getting into your dream school when you don't really care about it, or like when you detach from it enough that if it doesn't happen, then oh well, like life will go on, life will move on. Like your hopes and dreams are not going to be crushed just by that one thing not working out. Like when you don't attach your entire self-worth to it, because there's a difference between your identity and your like self-worth. Some people have talked about how you need to detach from the outcome and fall in love with the process, and that is like what makes it worth it. So this is where your confidence will come from. Because you're so confident about it, that reinforces your belief within it. So it's kind of like when you're faking it till you make it, you actually end up making it because you're reinforcing that belief in yourself. Every time you act that way, you're kind of, it's like you're telling your brain like, huh, maybe it really is this way. And then your brain starts to change the way that it relates to you, same as how Mel Robbins said. But I do want to put a bit of a disclaimer out there. Be careful with faking your confidence if you haven't done or are not currently doing the inner work. Inner work is absolutely crucial, and the complexity is that your inner work and your outer work reinforce each other. For example, you're not good at like talking to people, but you say, screw that, I'm good at talking to people, I'm confident. And so you go out and you strike a conversation with a stranger and you feel so uncomfortable. At first, your brain does not like it at all, because again, it's something foreign to you because you never really do it. At first, you're like, you do not want to be there. You just want to run out of the room. Right now, you're in foreign territory. And so your brain finds that scary and it wants to push back against that and go back into your comfort zone. But as you keep doing it, as you keep repeating that action, you reinforce yourself like, okay, no, this is how we're gonna do things from now on. And so it becomes habitual. Even if you're not like a crazy extroverted person, I'm gonna be honest, I think this is how brainwashing works. Maybe the title of this video should be how to brainwash yourself. It's your actions and it's the reactions of people to you, to these changes that you make around you, that will reinforce this and then trick your brain into thinking that that is who you already are. But while you're doing this, you still need to like constantly be working on that part of you inside that knows this and understands this. And that's where like the affirmations and the visualization and the self-reflecting on stuff every single day, every time you feel something, every time you evoke a new emotion within you, you should be reflecting on this type of stuff to really do the inner work and make sure that your inner self is like keeping up with your outer self, because sometimes there can be like too much of a gap between the two. And then what ends up happening is you might think that you've like worked on yourself, or that you're like really in a position where you're super confident or you're super whatever the trait that you're trying to get, but in reality you're not as much as you thought. So a quote that put this into perspective for me was that if you didn't truly believe in yourself, you wouldn't have started it in the first place. Because when we don't have hope for something, like when we truly do not believe in it, then we don't do it. But there's some part of you in there that is like keen on making this happen and actually wants to implement these changes in your life. So act upon that. That's all I have for you today. Stay tuned for the next video where we're gonna talk all about becoming your own dream girl, learning how to fill your own cup, getting comfortable being alone, especially when your friends aren't able to hang out with you, and still having fun. I hope you found this video valuable, and if you did, please leave a comment down below. Video episodes are available on YouTube, and if you like to listen to podcasts on the go, then the Spotify and Apple podcast version are linked down below in the description. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.